Bienvenidos, Fright fans. Welcome to the horror show. I'm Jaime Fuego.
I'm Marcia Fuego.
And I'm Cecil, Laird, and we're here to give you our top 6 movies of 2015.
So yeah, guys, we're going to be breaking this into 2 picks at a time, along with a few honorable mentions, maybe big disappointments. So it's going to be a little bit of everything from 2015.
Yep.
I'm going to jump right into my number 6, which is one that I waited way too long to watch. It's called We Are Still Here. It's got a very Stephen King type vibe to the proceedings. You've got this grief-stricken couple. Their son has died. They move into this new house in New England. It's snowy. It's a period piece in the 70s, so the clothing and just kind of vibe is very kind of cool, but things get bloody. There is like every bit of possibility from a house being possessed to their son's spirit being there. You're not really knowing too sure what's going on until the very end, and I loved it. So that's my number 6.
And my number 6 is actually, interestingly enough, my 5 and 6 are pretty much exactly the same as Fuego's 5 and 6.
That's not surprising at all.
We Are Still Here is my number 6 as well. It was one that was very recently watched by us. We did a trailer reaction to it months ago when it first came out, and unfortunately it took us a long time to get around to watching the film, which was, turns out, very worth the wait. Like, it was a very well done movie, not only for the same reasons that Fuego said, but there was some really, really cool deaths in this movie. And it starts out, you're thinking, oh, we're not going to see that much death just for the sheer lack of characters in it, but that changes, and it ends up actually being a really cool, like, sort of cannon fodder situation towards the end of the film. And any true horror fan would like to see just what happens to said cannon fodder as they go through.
Don't fight it. Just accept it. You stay, you satisfy the darkness.
Okay, I'm going to say number 6 is going to be It Follows. I put it at the bottom because I feel like it does need to get mentioned I didn't have a lot of tops, so it went to the bottom. It would have been number 1 if it had a third act. I hands down have a huge feeling that if it had a third act, I would probably have bumped it up to number 1.
No, it's me.
Everything's okay.
It could look like someone you know, or it could be a stranger in a crowd. Whatever helps it get close to you.
Number 5 is going to be Tales of Halloween. I love anthology horror. There were 10 segments broken up in this. There's some which were better than others, but my personal favorite is about this kid chowing on candy for the first time, and it gets really grotesque. Also, Neil Marshall did a great piece. So yeah, 10 different segments, all awesome. Love anthology horror.
I'm going to go with Tales of Halloween as well.
Yeah.
This one, like he said, is one of the better horror anthology offerings of recent memory, and so much so that there were maybe, 7 stories in it, 7 or 8 stories, and
I think it was 10. But
was it really 10? Wow.
There were a few that were just so short. Remember?
You know what? I'm just
Couple
thinking.
minutes
I'm
long.
thinking of some.
The
There was
larger-
actually 6 or 7 that I actually enjoyed.
Yeah.
Like, that's what was so nice about it.
It was hit and miss.
More
at
than
times,
half, but more than half were enjoyable in my
Very much
opinion,
so.
and
feel like I
and
need
a
to
few
watch
of those very much
it's
so.
great.
Like, there were at least 4 that I thought were worth the price of admission alone. Specifically, there was one that involved a stop motion alien, and then another one
which I didn't like that much, but he loved it, and that's
I
the thing.
did.
There's a little bit of everything for everyone. in that.
Exactly. So, you know what? I won't spoil any others, but that was a fantastic anthology movie, and hence the reason it's my number 5 top horror movie of 2015.
You don't have the slightest idea what you're dealing with.
Number 5, I would say Insidious 3. That could have been number 2, but I didn't like half of the storyline. So if they would have shown me more of the actual haunting, I would have put that up to probably number 2. But they fell short, so 5 and 6 it is.
I'll be waiting in the dark when the pain finally kills you. Tiptoe
Fuego, let's go with number 4 and 3.
Damn right, I'm getting on it. So number 4, numero cuatro, guys, is going to be a film that we actually had the pleasure to see at the International Horror and Sci-Fi Film Festival, which we got to cover back in October. From Auntie Ozzy, shout out to you, man, and gracias for trying to bring us along for some Phoenix Film Festival coverage later this year. Excited for that, but it's Bone Tomahawk.
Don't be scared. I am a friend.
You aren't.
Damn you! You had no cause. If you want to question my morals, do it later.
Amazing cast in this. Not a huge cast, but an ensemble that worked together so well. You've got some Kurt Russell, Patrick Wilson, who we're about to see again in Conjuring 2. You know, he was also in the Insidious films. He's on Fargo recently. Everyone's told me he's great in that as well.
Yep.
But you've got Matthew Fox from Lost. What an ensemble. I was so impressed with the fact that it could switch from Western to horror once the tension really builds. And gosh, it was so great. So
my number 4 is actually going to be the same as Jaime's number 4, ironically enough.
We're 3 for 3 so far.
Yeah, pretty ridiculous. Bone Tomahawk as well. I knew absolutely nothing about it going into it other than it was a Western with possible cannibalism. And then the opening scene draws me in because it's 2 actors that I like and some really cool stuff happens right off the bat. And then we get to see Kurt Russell return to the Western format, which I loved from Tombstone, obviously. All the actors that he mentioned. Matthew Fox blew me away in his sort of portrayal of a fancy gunfighter. The actual crazy horror aspect of it, once we finally got to it, was above most other things of this past year. It was something that's going to stick with me for a very long time, and that is a tough bar to set when it comes to a horror fan such as myself.
Okay, so my number 4 is going to be Final Girls. It was this awesome movie about a girl who gets sucked into this movie, and they get to play it kind of like you would a video game, and that's kind of what I liked about it. It was very campy, but they made fun of the campy. There was a lot of clever jokes. The acting in it was great. Guy from Workaholics was in it. Oh my god, like, what is he doing in those shorts? So it was a really good and fun movie. I really enjoyed it. I put We Are Still Here as my number 3, actually, because I think what really did it was in the beginning of the movie, I was like super bored. I'm like, when is it gonna get to the point? I was like, really like, what is happening here? And then Dave actually said, he's like, just give it time, just let it, like, just wait, be patient. So then I focused in on it, and it really started moving fast. A lot of subtleties in it reminded me of what it is like to be in a small town and like coming in as a new person in that house down the street that nobody wants to live in, and then finding out why. So, and it's a good story. It's a good ghost story. It doesn't have a Scooby-Doo ending, so it made it to number 3 for me.
And then jumping to my number 3, we have a film which was very New Zealandy as far as the horror goes. I love Deathgasm. It might have even been a 1 or a 2 if not for the fact that there were certain writing elements that I thought were kind of cliched and lame, but the music is amazing. It's so bloody. It was like the best homage to Dead Alive by way of Evil Dead 2 that I've probably ever seen, and the fact that it also came from, you know, same country as Peter Jackson, who went on to do The Lord of the Rings, but he started out doing bloody zombie type stuff, and yeah, it was so rockin', and as a heavy metal guy myself, it spoke to me.
What's up?
That was pretty cool, as is, I mean, the accent.
You know, I'm not even sure I'm in the right tuning. Brother of Steel.
Now, my number 3 does veer into different territory, though, at this point.
No!
My number 3 is going to be a movie that I saw on Netflix. It was released before it, obviously, but it did make its way to Netflix in the past couple months, and that's called Stung. And the reason I went with Stung is basically, Stung is a major throwback to old 80s creature movies that didn't necessarily have a lot of depth, but they had really cool creature effects and special gore effects.
Totally.
Basically, gigantic bugs start coming out of the humans. It's a gore fan's fantasy. And especially if you're afraid of bugs, or if you know anyone that's scared of bugs, make them sit down and watch Stung with you, because it is worth it.
Oh, gosh.
What the hell just happened? Those bees.
They're not bees, those are wasps.
Who gives a shit? Bees, wasps. How the hell can all of this be happening?
How do I know when you'll be back?
You don't.
We're getting close, guys. We are at our top 2 picks now, and my number 2, almost my number 1. This was an incredibly tough one. There is a awesome 3-disc collector's edition about to come out of it. That is Turbo Kid. It Follows, one of the good things about It Follows was the soundtrack for me. This one blew it away, at least as far as just like getting you going, and it was an amazing combination of Canadians and New Zealanders working together to make something that I thought was better than Mad Max, way bloodier. We're talking about heads on pikes and stuff. It was an interesting mixture of everything from a little horror, a little fantasy, a little post-apocalyptic action, but yeah, they're on a little BMXer stuff. There's no oil, presumably, but great acting. Apple, I will love you forever. There's no doubt about that.
Shout out.
Yes, exactly right. Amazing French actress.
Lawrence LeBouf.
Yes, Lawrence LeBouf. There you go. Thank you for the correction there, sir. So yeah, fantastic film. Easily could have been my number 1. It was fun, it was bloody, and it had so much heart to it, which is why it's in my top 2.
Let's roll.
My number 2 is actually going to be the same as Fuego's number 2, Turbo Kid. This one was sort of out of left field. When we first saw the trailer for this movie, I remember we were both super excited. We were like, oh, this looks like something we're going to have to cover.
We did a reaction for it.
We did do a reaction for it, and when we finally got around to seeing it, it was just phenomenal. I mean, it was an excellent homage to 80s, just the way another movie is that I'm going to mention in a moment here, but this one was 80s to its core, with the synth soundtrack, the over-the-top 80s bad guy vibe played by Michael Ironside.
So good.
And as you said, Apple, played by Lawrence LeBouf, was a fantastic character that was just fun. She lit up every single scene that she was in, so she stole every single scene that she was in. And then when Turbo Kid got his powers and they started fighting back, and there was gore galore. It was, I mean, I've mentioned on our show a number of times that gore is my number 1 thing for horror. And ironically, it doesn't make a lot of sense for my number 2 and number 1. You'd think they'd be transposed, but in this case, Turbo Kid, the gore-tastic masterpiece of 2015, is my number 2.
The fate of our future is in your hand.
I wish I could have been more like the real Turbo Rider.
But you could totally be Turbo Kid.
I would say What We Do in Shadows does need to get mentioned, because I think of all the movies that I watch, yes, it is a comedy movie, but I like comedy and I love vampires, and to mix them was really fun in the way they did it. You still got some gore in it.
There's some blood.
You got a lot of blood. You got a lot of fun actors and a lot of great cheesy quotes that you just can laugh for hours for. But there was a lot of fun. I liked the movie. It really surprised me. So I made it my number 2 because I actually enjoyed watching it.
Turn it, hey. Use your legs. Wow.
What the f*** did he that for? Hey, that was... Don't swear. What are we?
Werewolves, not swearwolves.
When you're a vampire, you become very sexy.
And so now we're going to actually save a little section where we can do an honorable mention or two. There was a couple that I got to say really quickly. I really wanted to put Final Girls in there, and I wanted to put a film called What We Do in the Shadows in there. But for me, they ended up being too much a comedy and not enough of a horror film. And so, yeah, they were not horror films with comedy elements like Deathgasm or you know, something else like Stung. Stung had some good humor in it too. Yeah, these were comedies with horror elements, so I can't mention those. And then also Tremors 5 and Stung. Even though Tremors 5 was more the, you know, CGI and stuff, there were a couple practical moments. It was much more fun as far as a creature movie than I was expecting.
So honorable mentions, I would say The Visit was good.
Better than I expected.
It was better than I expected. A little Scooby-Doo ending on it as well. A little bit of that. A little weirdness too. But I think if you're gonna be like kidnapped by grandma and grandpa, this is what it would feel like. And just very, very strange. Second would be Cooties. It's another one that's fun, but it's zombies. There was a lot of good one-liners in it. The acting was good. It was for what it was. I felt like it was lacking something though. Like it had all the elements, but it was just missing something.
So it was good, not great, right?
Right, yeah.
All right. I did want to also mention Tremors 5 for the reason that Tremors is one of my all-time favorite horror series, and getting a brand new version of it, a brand new addition to the series, despite the fact that it includes an actor, Jamie Kennedy, that I'm not a huge fan of.
He's way better than you thought he was.
It was better. He was better than I thought he'd be. The movie was excellent. They used a lot more CG than they ever have in the past, but the creatures genuinely looked scary. I just enjoyed seeing that series come back. I also wanted to shout out What We Do in the Shadows. That was a great one. That was hilarious, but again, it ended up being more funny than horror, although it was
some
great.
horror moments, okay?
There were, but
he brought a
not
human
enough.
into a like vampire zombie, you know.
I understand. I get it.
Party
I get it. It was fun. It was fun. So there's a lot we didn't get to, you guys. The ones we did get to, we stand by. These are good movies. So with that said, it's time to get into our number one best horror movie of 2015.
Number one, some may argue that it's more of a sci-fi, but then again, you know, a lot of people could argue that, you know, one is more comedy or one is more an action or whatever. It's also my favorite film of the year, and it's Ex Machina. I wasn't going to put it on this list. It was probably going to be Turbo Kid until I saw some of my buddies at Bloody Disgusting like Brad Miska and, you know, Barkin putting it on their list too, so I felt okay with putting it on there. It's the ending to the film that really drives it into horror territory for me. You know, it's where you start to figure out, okay, things are less, how do I say, weird science and more Terminator, just to put it bluntly. But Alex Garland, his directorial debut, he'd written 28 Days Later and Sunshine, and so he has experience with doing things that were kind of sci-fi, scary, you know, whatever. But this film is in the not too distant future, very Black Mirror-esque, which for me was throwback Twilight Zone, which is scary a lot of the time. It's really just three people. You got Oscar Isaac, Domhnall Gleeson, and then you got Alicia Vikander, all of which went on to do other amazing things this year. Like, Vikander got nominated for an Oscar for the Danish Girl, I believe is the title of the film. And then, you know, I mean, come on, we all know Oscar Isaac's going to be Apocalypse, and he was in the new Star Wars, for God's sake. So was Gleeson, and Gleeson was also in Revenant. So these were three actors that did a small budget film that, for me, just stuck with me more so than anything else I saw this year. So Ex Machina, that's my number one.
You shouldn't trust Nathan. You shouldn't trust anything he says.
I think it's the next model that's going to be the real breakthrough.
Well, what do you do with the old one?
You have to help me.
One day the AIs are going to look back on us, upright apes, all set for extinction.
Is it strange to have made something that hates you?
What were you doing with Ava?
You know, I'm really happy to say this, but at the same time, I'm really sad to say that my number one was actually a remake of something that somebody already did, but they did it so well, and I loved every minute of it. I picked The Poltergeist. I just was super excited to go see it. I got to go see it, and I left super happy. Everything they did between the writing, the graphics, the camera work, like, I just could keep going, but then, you know, you'd be stuck here listening to me just talk about The Poltergeist, which we've already seen once, but the way they did the spin of it was gorgeous. There was a lot of, like, what would you do moments, and the family was believable, so, I don't know, good job. Sorry for everybody else that your creative ideas didn't last for me. Poltergeist, yeah.
All right.
Sam Rockwell.
Fair enough.
Stuff spirits. But this isn't just a few pissed off spirits.
It's a poltergeist. They are trapped and desperate, and Maddie is their ticket out.
We just want our daughter back.
The door to their world could close at any moment. If that happens, we gotta go in and get her out.
Maddie.
Help me. I want you all to clear your minds. They already know what scares you.
And my number one is one that has been mentioned by both of my compatriots here. Marcia actually had it on her list, and Fuego had it in his honorable mention. My number one is going to be The Final Girls. This movie made me happy in so many ways when I saw it. Like, I knew nothing about it going into it. We also saw it at the International Horror Sci-Fi Film Festival Fall Showcase. Again, thank you, Monty Ozzy. It was an unbelievably awesome surprise as someone that was raised so Nightmare on Elm Street, Chucky, Friday the 13th, Michael Myers, Hellraiser, all of those, that's what got me into horror. And a movie that takes place within essentially a Friday the 13th movie, it was amazing.
I wonder if all this blood is just corn syrup, you know, like these characters are walking around with just corn syrup in their veins. Oh, no. Oh, God, that's blood.
Then you get to add the story between the main character, Max, and her mom, played by Malin Ackerman.
I know in the movie you're supposed to die, but that doesn't mean you have to, right?
What do we do now? We fight.
As soon as you realize what happens, when the catalyst happens and they go into the movie, then suddenly it dawned on me, oh, this is going to be the emotional core of the movie. And they did it. Yeah. They used it. The actress that played Max, she was in the first and third season of American Horror Story. She is phenomenal. And then the interplay between her and Malin Ackerman, and some of especially a scene towards the end that they had with each other, it got to me. And I've seen the movie a number of times. I immediately bought the Blu-ray when it became available. It is fantastic. And even though it breaks my rule, it's a horror movie that doesn't have gore, which normally I hate those. This one was so good at what it was doing, making fun of those 80s movies without gore.
And dramatic at the same time.
And dramatic, and messing with... There was visual gags where there were, the credits that would come up and say, this place, 1957 or whatever. As soon as we saw it again in the theater, it was 3D, and then it showed up again later when a character got bashed in, and then all the letters go scattering across the screen. It was so chock full of intelligent jokes within a horror movie setup. Yeah. And
it contains the horror side of it too, because the killer was...
Yeah, and it contains the single funniest scene, not only of this past year, but in many recent years, in my opinion. You will be hard pressed to find a funnier scene than one that is most aptly described in 2 words, saying Adderall striptease. It was amazing. So
striptease is all one word.
Easily, yes, thank you. It is easily my number one movie above all else for 2015, The Final Girls. Special shout out to both Adam Devine from Workaholics, as you mentioned, and Thomas Middleditch from Silicon Valley and many other things. He is hilarious, and this movie was above and beyond all else, in my opinion.
What's happening? It's slow motion.
That is our top 6 movies of 2015. Thank you very much for watching. I've been Cecil Laird.
I'm Marcia Fuego.
Gracias, Jaime and Fuego.
And until 2016's top 6 list, remember, stay scared.